The knock on the door wasn't loud. It was the kind of knock people use when they don't want to admit they're there. The kind that says, "I know I don't belong, but I'm showing up anyway." I put down my coffee, glanced at the clock, 6:42 p.m., and braced myself. See, in my house, surprise visitors are rarer than honest politicians. My wife, Claire, hated unannounced anything. Birthdays, guests, even my own opinions, all had to be scheduled 3 weeks in advance with her approval. So when I opened the door and found a tall guy in a fitted blazer holding a bouquet of roses, I knew right away something was rotten. He had the kind of smirk you only get from never being told no in your life. "Evening," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "You're either at the wrong house, or you're about to make a very bold mistake." He chuckled, like I just told a joke. Behind me, I heard Claire's voice float down the hallway. "Who is it, Mark?" That tone. Cheerful, a little too cheerful. Like she already knew. I stepped aside slowly, keeping my eyes on the guy. "Delivery," I said flatly. "Looks like someone sent you flowers." Claire appeared in the hallway wearing that red dress she only ever wore for anniversaries, or apparently, for guests named not me. Her eyes lit up at the sight of him, and that was all the confirmation I needed. "Anthony," she breathed, taking the roses like they were a medal she'd won. Anthony. Of course it was Anthony. The name she'd been casually mentioning at dinner for weeks. The coworker who helped her with reports. The man whose number she'd saved under Samantha in her phone, which I'd already known about. I smiled. Not the friendly kind. The kind of smile you wear when you've been 2 steps ahead all along. "Good to finally meet you," I said, extending my hand. He shook it, too eager, too clueless. "Likewise. Claire talks about you all the time." I tightened my grip until his grin faltered. "I bet she does." Claire cleared her throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Mark, Anthony just stopped by to bring flowers," I interrupted smoothly. "How thoughtful." I released his hand and stepped back. "Why don't you both come in? No sense having this conversation on the porch." Anthony blinked. "Conversation? Oh," I said, still smiling. "You'll see." Claire shot me a look, the kind that used to scare me years ago. Not tonight. Tonight I was calm. Maybe too calm. Because what she didn't know was this. I'd been expecting this moment. I'd been preparing for it. And by the time she realized the game she was playing, I'd already moved all the pieces on the board. We sat at the dining table like it was Thanksgiving dinner, except nobody was thankful and the turkey was missing. Anthony placed the roses in front of Claire like he was staking a claim, while she fussed with the vase as if that little floral arrangement could distract me from the fact that her lipstick was fresher than the salad dressing she'd made. "So," I said, folding my hands on the table. "Anthony, what do you do?" He smiled, too proud. "I work with Claire. We're in marketing." "Oh, marketing. That explains the presentation." I nodded toward the flowers. Claire gave me a warning glance. The kind that says don't you dare. I ignored it. Anthony chuckled nervously. I just thought Claire could use a little pick-me-up. She's been working so hard." "Yeah," I said evenly. "I've noticed how hard she's been working." Claire jumped in quickly. "Mark, please. This isn't." "Relax," I said, smiling. "I'm just making conversation. After all, it's not every day I get to meet the man my wife has been collaborating with." The word hung there, heavy. Anthony shifted in his chair. Claire's jaw tightened. "Mark," she said, voice sharp now. "You're being rude." "Am I?" I tilted my head. Funny, because I thought being rude was sneaking around and thinking I wouldn't notice. Anthony glanced at her, clearly out of his depth. "Wait, Claire, you said." "She said what?" I asked smoothly. Claire stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous. Anthony, you should go." But Anthony didn't move. He was looking at me now, like a kid who'd just realized he'd walked into the wrong classroom. "What's going on here?" he asked quietly. I leaned back in my chair, perfectly calm. "What's going on?" I said, "is that my wife underestimated me. She thought I was blind. She thought I'd never see the late-night texts, the sudden gym trips, the perfume I don't recognize." Claire's face went pale. "Mark." I turned to Anthony, ignoring her. "You should probably know, Anthony, that Claire isn't as good at keeping secrets as she thinks. In fact, I've got quite the collection of her, shall we say, extracurricular activities." His eyes widened. Claire's lips parted, but no words came out. And in that silence, I smiled again, because this was the part she never expected. Claire finally found her voice. "Mark, you're twisting this. Anthony, don't listen. Claire. I cut her off, still calm. Maybe let the man decide what to believe. I'm sure he's smart enough. Anthony leaned forward. What exactly are you saying? I slid my phone across the table. The screen lit up with a neat little folder labeled Claire and Anthony. He froze. Go ahead, I said. Take a look. I'd hate for you to think I'm just jealous. He hesitated, then tapped. His own face stared back at him in half a dozen candid photos. Outside a hotel, leaning a little too close at the office holiday party, and my personal favorite, him and Claire at that same hotel bar, her hand not so innocently brushing his thigh. Claire's voice shook now. You've been spying on me? Spying? I chuckled. No. Observing. There's a difference. See, a spy hopes to find something. An observer already knows what he's looking for. Anthony swallowed hard, sliding the phone back. This isn't what it looks like. I raised an eyebrow. Really? Because I'm pretty sure it looks like you were trying to build a relationship with a married woman in broad daylight. If you want to argue about lighting or angles, be my guest. Claire slammed her hand on the table. Enough. You're humiliating me. I leaned in slightly, meeting her eyes. Funny, I said quietly. That's exactly what you've been doing to me for months. Difference is, I don't embarrass easy. Anthony shifted uncomfortably. Look, maybe I should just sit, I said firmly. He froze like a kid caught stealing candy. Claire stared at me, furious. What are you planning to do? I leaned back, crossing my arms. Oh, sweetheart, that's the beauty of it. I'm not planning anything. I smiled faintly. Because I already have. Her face drained of color. What do you mean? Let's just say, I said slowly. This little dinner is the last course in a meal I've been cooking for weeks. Anthony looked from her to me, clearly regretting every life choice that led him to my dining table. And that was exactly how I wanted it. If you've ever watched a cat toy with a mouse, you know the look I had on my face that night. Not anger. No, anger would have been a gift to her. It was calm. The kind of calm that says, I know the ending, and you don't. Claire finally broke the silence. What do you mean you've been planning? Her tone was sharp, but her hands were trembling. That's the thing about liars. The mouth keeps working even when the body knows the truth has cornered them. I reached for my glass of water, took a slow sip, and looked Anthony dead in the eye. Let me ask you something, Anthony. Did Claire tell you she was married when she first started collaborating with you? He shifted, uncomfortable. She mentioned you, yeah. Mentioned me. I repeated, smirking. That's a polite way of saying she painted me as the boring husband, didn't she? The background character. The guy folding laundry while she's out late at work. He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Claire snapped. You don't get to interrogate him. You don't get to. Actually, I cut her off. I get to do quite a lot. See, unlike you two, I actually think ahead. For example, I reached under the table and set a manila envelope in front of them. Claire's face went pale the second she saw it. Anthony frowned. What's that? I tapped it lightly. Proof. Financial records. Screenshots. Emails. The works. Claire's voice dropped to a whisper. You went through my computer. I shrugged. You went through our vows. Fair trade, don't you think? Anthony leaned forward, curiosity overtaking his nerves. So what do you want, Mark? You going to blackmail us? I smiled at that, a small, dry smile. Blackmail? No, that's messy. I prefer clarity. Claire's voice rose, desperate now. Mark, please. You don't have to do this. We can talk. Oh, now we can talk, I said, chuckling. After months of lies, now you want a conversation. Tell me, Claire, did you laugh this hard with him when you said you were working late? Did you smile like that when you thought about what would happen if I found out? Her silence was louder than any confession. Anthony finally spoke up, trying to salvage the situation. Look, man, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You just what? I interrupted. Tripped and fell into an affair? Don't insult both of us. He swallowed, eyes darting between me and Claire. She wasn't meeting his gaze anymore. That alone told me what I needed. Even he was starting to realize he was just her latest hobby. I leaned forward, lowering my voice so they had to lean in too. Here's the thing you don't know, Anthony. Everything you've done with her, I've already known about. Every text, every little business dinner, every hotel visit. You see, Claire thinks I'm blind because I don't yell or snoop in the middle of the night. But I don't need to. I'm not reactive. I'm prepared. Claire's face twisted. You're insane. No, I said softly. I'm patient. Anthony's brow furrowed. So what are you going to do with all this? I tapped the envelope again. That depends. On what? He asked. On how honest the two of you want to be. Claire's lip curled. This is ridiculous. You're bluffing. I raised an eyebrow. Am I? I slid my phone back across the table, this time opening a video. Her face appeared on the screen, walking into a hotel with him, laughing. Not blurry, not grainy, crystal clear. Anthony swore under his breath. Claire looked like she might faint. Relax, I said calmly. No one else has seen this. Yet. Claire finally snapped, slamming her palm on the table. What do you want from me? I leaned back, taking my time before answering. Want? Funny you should ask. Because unlike you, Claire, I don't need anyone else to make me feel alive. I don't want your excuses, and I certainly don't want your tears. What I do want, I paused, letting the tension build, is for you to understand that I'm already gone. Her mouth opened, then shut again. For the first time since this began, she looked small. You see, I continued, while you were sneaking around, I was making preparations. Separate bank accounts. Consulted a lawyer. Secured the house in my name only. Little paperwork detail you forgot when you signed it over for a tax break. Anthony's eyes widened. Wait, what? Claire snapped her head toward me. You didn't. Oh, I did, I said evenly. And that's not all. Your little shopping sprees on our joint card? Documented. The cash withdrawals you couldn't explain? Also documented. You might think of yourself as clever, Claire, but you've been playing checkers while I've been playing chess. Anthony pushed his chair back slightly. Maybe I should leave. I smiled at him. Not yet. You came for dinner, after all. At least hear the dessert course. Claire's voice cracked. You can't just take everything from me. Funny, I said. That's exactly what you've been trying to do to me. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. I let you. She blinked. You what? I let you dig your own hole, I said. Because now, when I walk away, I don't leave empty-handed. You see, I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to chase you. I'm just going to let you sit in this house you thought you'd inherit, with the man you thought was worth ruining everything for, and realize you've been left with nothing. Anthony's face drained of color. Claire, you said. Oh, I'm sure she said a lot, I interrupted. That I was controlling, maybe. That I was boring. That you were the missing piece she always wanted. But let me ask you, Anthony, I leaned forward. Do you really think you're the only one? The question hit him like a punch. He glanced at her, and for the first time that night, I saw doubt cloud his smug expression. Claire snapped. Don't you dare. Why not? I asked. You lied to me every day? What's stopping you from doing the same to him? Silence fell heavy between us. I stood, smoothing my shirt. Dinner's over. You can both see yourselves out. Claire's voice rose, desperate. Mark, wait. Where are you going? I turned at the doorway, meeting her eyes one last time. Somewhere you'll never follow. Because you never knew who I really was, Claire. And that's your loss, not mine. Then I left the room, calm, steady, already knowing the next move they wouldn't see coming. Because this was only the beginning. I didn't storm out of the house. That would have been too easy, too expected. Instead, I walked upstairs like a man grabbing a jacket before heading to the gym. Calm, controlled, the kind of exit that leaves everyone guessing. Behind me, I heard Anthony whisper, "What the hell just happened?" Claire's reply was muffled, shaky. I didn't care enough to listen. I had bigger plans. In the bedroom, I opened the top drawer of my dresser, the one she never touched because it was filled with my boring paperwork. That's what she used to call it. Boring. Inside was a neat stack of folders. Bank statements, emails, copies of text messages she thought she'd deleted. Evidence, all organized with the precision of a man who'd been patient for far too long. I slipped the top folder into a leather bag I'd bought weeks ago and glanced around the room. The bed was perfectly made. I'd made sure of it earlier, knowing tonight was coming. No sense leaving chaos behind when order sent a louder message. When I came back downstairs, Anthony was standing near the door like he was waiting for an Uber. Claire stood by the table, arms folded, her face pale, but her chin lifted like she still believed she could win this somehow. You're leaving? She asked, her voice catching despite the bravado. Not leaving, I corrected softly. Relocating. Anthony cleared his throat. Look, man, maybe we can talk. I cut him off with a glance. Anthony, if you want to salvage what's left of your dignity, take her advice and go. He looked at Claire, but she didn't meet his eyes. That told him everything he needed to know. He muttered something under his breath and slipped out the door. Good. I wanted him gone before the real storm hit. When the door closed, Claire finally dropped the act. You're overreacting. I laughed quietly. Overreacting? Claire, if this were an overreaction, you'd be watching me flip tables and scream. But see, I'm not. That's what scares you. I'm calm. Because I already know how this ends. She bit her lip, searching for the right words. We can fix this. I'll stop seeing him. I shook my head. It's not about him. It was never about him. Anthony's just the symptom. You're the disease. Her eyes widened. She wasn't used to me talking like that. She was used to me swallowing it, holding my tongue, waiting for her moods to pass. That version of me was dead. Where are you going? She asked quietly. I adjusted the strap of my bag. To a place where I can breathe. But don't worry, you'll hear from me soon enough. I walked out before she could answer. The next morning, I sat at a cafe across town, sipping black coffee like it was just another Tuesday. My phone buzzed with a string of messages from Claire. Claire, we need to talk. Claire, please don't do anything stupid. Claire, I didn't mean for it to go this far. Claire, call me. I ignored all of them. Instead, I opened an email draft I'd been working on for weeks. The recipients were carefully chosen. Her boss, the HR director, and, just for good measure, the board chair of her company. Attached was a PDF. 47 pages of Claire's collaboration with Anthony, including timestamps that coincidentally lined up with hours she'd billed as overtime. I didn't hit send. Not yet. Timing is everything, and revenge, real revenge, is best served with precision, not passion. As I sat there, my friend David slid into the seat across from me. He'd been in on my quiet plan since the start. You did it, he asked. Stage 1, I replied. Dinner went exactly how I wanted. He grinned. And she still has no clue what's coming. None, I said. She thinks the worst I'll do is leave. David raised an eyebrow. And you're sure about this? I took a slow sip of coffee. She took her time tearing me down. I'll take my time returning the favor. One step at a time. She'll never see the last one coming. That afternoon, I went back to the house. Not through the front, through the garage, where she'd never expect me. The place was quiet. Claire was upstairs on a call, her voice sharp and professional, like she wasn't living in a crumbling marriage. I moved quickly, not packing. I'd already taken what I needed. Instead, I removed myself from the house in every other way. The framed photos on my desk? Gone. The cufflinks her parents gave me? Gone. The leather jacket she always complained about because it made me look like I was trying too hard? Gone. I left behind just enough of me for her to notice the absence. My slippers by the couch. The mug I used every morning. A pair of sneakers by the door. The kind of things that make silence echo louder. Before I left, I placed one envelope on the kitchen counter. Inside was a single sheet of paper, not a note, not an explanation. Just a printout of her bank account showing the withdrawals she didn't know I'd traced. No words, just numbers. I knew she'd open it, sit at that kitchen island, and feel the walls close in. That night, I checked into a small apartment I'd leased under my name alone. Not fancy, not permanent, just mine. For walls she'd never step inside. Around midnight, my phone lit up again. This time she called. I let it ring out. Then the voicemail came through. Mark, please. I made a mistake. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me. Funny how quickly the strong ones crumble when they realize the leash isn't around your neck anymore. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out the other folder from my bag. The one labeled Plan B. Inside were documents, the house deed, the joint account transfers, and the finalized paperwork for what my lawyer had called a very generous settlement offer, if she's smart enough to sign. Claire didn't know it yet, but the walls of her castle had already been stripped down to drywall. And tomorrow, I'd show her just how much she'd already lost. Because my revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet, surgical, and when the final cut came, she'd never see it coming. The next morning, I woke up to 20 unread messages. She was unraveling. Good. That was the point. But I wasn't going to answer. Not yet. Timing. Always timing. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching the light crawl across the wall, and thought about the last time I truly believed in US. Years ago. Before the lies, before the smirks at her phone, before Anthony. And I realized something that made me laugh out loud in the silence of that little apartment. She thought the worst thing I could do was leave. She had no idea. That night, I wrote 3 emails. Short, precise, scheduled to send at 8 a.m. sharp the next morning. One to her boss, one to her mother, who thought I hung the moon, and one to Claire herself. The subject line on hers was simple: checkmate. That was the night I slept better than I had in years. Because tomorrow, the real game began. The thing about pressing send on a carefully timed email is that you don't have to do anything else. The bomb detonates itself. At 8 a.m. sharp, 3 little digital grenades flew out of my outbox and landed exactly where I wanted them. I was halfway through a bagel at the cafe down the street when my phone started buzzing like a hornet's nest. Not calls, texts. Notifications from Claire, back to back, frantic. Claire, what did you do? Claire, my boss just called me into the office. Claire, you're insane. Claire, please, let's talk. I took another bite of the bagel. Sesame. Pretty good. By 8:15, the second one hit. This time, it was her mother. Mrs. Adams. Mark, I don't understand. Claire says this is a mistake. Tell me this isn't true. I didn't respond. I never intended to. Silence is louder than any explanation. And by 8:30, the final email had detonated right in Claire's inbox. The subject line, checkmate. The body, one sentence. By the time you finish reading this, everyone else already has. At 9:02, she called. I let it ring out. At 9:04, she called again. I let that one ring too. By 9:07, she tried FaceTime. Cute. Like seeing my face would make me forget the months she spent sneaking around. I didn't answer that one either. Instead, I walked over to the window of the cafe and watched the morning traffic crawl by. People in suits rushing to jobs they hated, couples grabbing coffees, kids dragging backpacks to school. Everyone moving on with their lives. And me? I felt lighter than I had in years. At noon, I got the message I'd been waiting for. Claire, they suspended me. Effective immediately. Mark, this is my career. My life. You've ruined me. I smirked. No, Claire. You ruined yourself. I just turned on the lights so everyone else could see it. 15 minutes later, my lawyer texted. She'll sign. She doesn't have a choice. Call me. Progress. By the evening, I figured she'd come knocking. And right on schedule, at 7 p.m., there was a knock on the door of my new apartment. I didn't open it right away. Let her stew for a minute. Let her wonder if I'd even answer. Finally, I opened the door just enough to see her standing there, mascara smudged, hair messy, eyes wide like a kid caught stealing candy. Mark, she breathed. Please, can we talk? I leaned on the doorframe. You're not supposed to be here. Her lips trembled. I lost my job. My mom won't even answer my calls. Anthony. She stopped, glancing down. Anthony what? I asked. She swallowed. He blocked me. I raised my eyebrows. Well, that didn't take long. Please, she said again, reaching for my arm. I made a mistake. I pulled back slightly. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. What you did was a decision. Repeatedly. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I smiled faintly. That's because you thought I needed you. You thought I'd beg, or yell, or crumble. But see, I don't beg. I don't yell. And I don't crumble. She looked at me like I was speaking a language she didn't understand. Which, in a way, I was. The language of a man who'd finally stopped playing the fool. I still love you, she whispered. I tilted my head. Do you? Or do you just love that I didn't love you the way Anthony just proved he didn't? Her face crumpled. She started to cry. Not loud, not ugly, but quiet tears, the kind that were meant to disarm me. Years ago, they might have worked. Tonight, they didn't even sting. Mark, I don't have anywhere else to go, she said softly. That was the moment I'd been waiting for. Not the confession. Not the tears. That sentence. The one that told me she was finally stripped down to the truth. You'll figure it out, I said calmly. Then I closed the door. I leaned against it for a second, listening to her footsteps retreat down the hall. Not a slam, not a tantrum, just quiet defeat. Perfect. The next morning, I got an email from HR. Official confirmation that Claire had been terminated pending investigation. Misuse of company time and resources, they called it. Neat. Precise. Final. Later that day, David stopped by the cafe again. She really showed up, he asked. Begged, I replied. And I shut the door. He let out a low whistle. Damn, that's cold. No, I said with a faint smile. That's clarity. He leaned back in his chair. So what's next? I thought about it. Not for long. Next, She signs the papers. Then I vanish. David smirked. You think she'll go quietly? Oh, she'll try to fight, I said. But here's the thing about people like Claire. They thrive on control. The second they realize they don't have it anymore, they fold. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, sipping whiskey, staring at the skyline. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Claire. Claire, I'll sign. Please just don't send anything else. I typed one reply. Me. It's already over. You just don't realize how much yet. I hit send and set the phone down. Because the truth was, she hadn't lost everything yet. She thought the job was the worst of it. She thought Anthony's disappearance was the cruelest cut. She had no idea what was waiting for her in part 7. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about making someone cry. It's about making them live every day knowing you were always one step ahead. And tomorrow, Claire would finally see just how far ahead I really was. The conference room smelled faintly of lemon polish and desperation. Claire sat across from me, her lawyer beside her, clutching a stack of papers like they were life rafts. She wouldn't meet my eyes. This is generous, her lawyer said cautiously, scanning the settlement. Generous. That was the word. Claire was walking away with just enough to survive, not enough to thrive. Exactly what I wanted. Claire finally spoke, her voice barely audible. Why are you doing this, Mark? I leaned back, calm as ever. Because I'm not the villain you painted me to be. You'll get the car, the condo, a small slice of savings. Enough to keep you comfortable, as long as you don't slip again. Her eyes flicked up, red from crying. And if I don't sign? I slid a second folder across the table. This one thinner, but far deadlier. Inside were emails, receipts, and photos she didn't know I had. Enough to nuke what was left of her reputation in one click. Her lawyer glanced through it, swallowed, and whispered, "You should sign." Claire's hand trembled as she scrawled her name on the dotted line. That was the moment she lost, not just the marriage, but the game. I leaned forward, my voice low. Congratulations. You just bought yourself a very lonely future. And with that, I stood and left her staring at the paper, her world shrinking around her. People think revenge is just about what you do to someone. It's not. It's also about what you leave undone. Within a week, Claire found out the hard way. The group chats she used to dominate? Silent. Invitations she counted on? Gone. Even her so-called friends, the ones who cheered her on behind my back, suddenly had busy schedules. David called me one evening, chuckling. She showed up at Julie's birthday party. They didn't even let her in. I smiled into my glass. Good. Meanwhile, Anthony stayed gone. Turns out he wasn't the knight in shining armor she thought he was. Just a guy who wanted the thrill of the chase, not the burden of the prize. And me? I was thriving. The condo I moved into felt bigger than it was. I laughed more. I slept better. And every now and then, when Claire's name popped up on my phone, I let it ring out, just to remind her of the silence. One night, she finally left a voicemail. Her voice cracked as she said, "Mark, I don't recognize my life anymore. Everyone's gone. Please just talk to me." I deleted it without listening to the rest. 3 weeks later, I gave her exactly what she wanted, a meeting. We sat across from each other at the same cafe where I'd been eating bagels the morning her career exploded. She looked different, smaller. Her makeup couldn't hide the circles under her eyes. "Why now?" she asked, stirring a coffee she wasn't drinking. "Because you've finally learned what silence feels like," I said evenly. She flinched. "I still love you." I tilted my head. "Do you? Or do you just love that I'm the only one who ever truly saw you?" Her eyes welled up. "Can't we start over?" I leaned in, voice low. "You want the truth, Claire? You never lost me because of Anthony. You lost me the moment you decided I was expendable." She reached across the table, desperate. "Just tell me what I have to do." I let the silence hang, then finally said, "Sign one more document." I pulled a single-page contract from my bag. On the surface, it was nothing, a final acknowledgement of the settlement terms. She didn't even read it, just signed like a drowning woman grabbing a lifeline. She smiled through tears. "Thank you." I smiled back. "You're welcome." Then I walked out, leaving her sitting there, clutching an illusion. Because what she didn't know was that the document she'd just signed granted me exclusive rights to the house she thought she still had a claim on. Effective immediately. By the time she figured it out, the locks would already be changed. 2 days later, Claire showed up at her house with a suitcase. She still thought she lived there. She still thought the world would bend for her. But when she slid her key into the lock, it didn't turn. I was parked across the street, watching from the safety of tinted glass. I saw her try again, and again. Then I watched her face crumble as the truth hit. She pounded on the door. Nothing. She called my name. Silence. Finally, she sank onto the porch steps, head in her hands. That's when her phone buzzed. One new message. From me. Me. Check your email. She fumbled for her phone, opened the inbox, and there it was. The contract she'd signed at the cafe, attached as a PDF, her signature at the bottom. The subject line read, "Final move." The body of the email was only 2 sentences. You wanted everything. Now you have nothing. Across the street, I watched her break. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet collapse, the kind of defeat you don't come back from. I leaned back in my seat, turned the key in the ignition, and drove away. No victory parade, no fireworks, just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I hadn't just left her, I'd outplayed her. And that was enough.